Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very well-respected coach and an author from New York, USA, Mr. Joel Salomon. Joel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Ashutosh. It's
Thank
a
you.
great pleasure and really an honor to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Joel is a master prosperity coach. He's an author of several books, and all of you know I'm very partial to authors. Amongst his books are Infinite Love and Money, The Nine Money Rules, Rules Millionaires Use Only the Unconventional Ones, Mindful Money Management, Memoirs of a Hedge Fund Manager. Joel is also the founder of SaLaurMor Charitable Incorporated, to teach financial literacy for kids under 18 in the US, and I hope I got the pronunciation correct. Joel, my
Yes.
first question is that you had such a fascinating journey from a hedge fund manager to a prosperity coach. Tell me about your journey and what inspired this shift.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Ashutosh. So, if you had asked me back in the 1990s what my dream job was, I would have told you money manager. I was doing on the weekends and evenings investing and analyzing stocks.
Mhm.
Took me 15 years, but I did achieve that dream.
Mhm.
I had to overcome a lot of doubt
Mhm.
in here and instilled by others. And so now I teach hashtag doubt the doubt. Have faith in the dream. Don't have faith in your doubt.
Mhm.
So I'd achieved my dream. And I really thought that I would be doing that for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
And in 2015, about almost 8 years later, I went to a personal development course, and it was a 3 day course, and we had a guest speaker speaking for 1 hour.
Mhm.
And that guest speaker was speaking about stocks
Mhm.
and stock options. And when he talked about options on stocks, he
Mhm.
said, you don't need much time, you don't need much money. This is how the rich people get rich, and options are essentially risk free.
Mhm.
And I was sick to my stomach. There were people tapping me on the shoulder, whispering me, Joel, does this make sense? Are options really riskless?
Mhm.
And so we were polite. After he was done, we went out of the auditorium. I told him, please don't do this. He has no idea about any of you individually. And most importantly, no idea about your belief
Mhm.
that you become rich using options.
Mhm.
Now, the second thing that happened at that personal development course was we were given a board 2 inches thick, and we were told we're going to break it with our bare hand.
Mhm.
Have you done it, Ashutosh?
I have, yes.
So the exercise was called Obstacles Are Illusions.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of fear in the room as we wrote on our permission slip, our next of kin, a lot of fear. And so on one side of the board, we had to write our biggest obstacle, and on the other side, our ultimate goal.
Mhm.
And that stumped me for a few minutes. And then it hit me:
Mhm.
make everyone in this room financially free.
Mhm.
And then I broke the board like everyone else did that day, 200 people in the room. Went home that night, I couldn't sleep. First, the guy was in my head. And
Mhm.
I realized if I could ever get up the courage to stand on a stage, I could be authentic, tell people the truth about money, and serve them.
Right.
And then the other thing that was happening at 3:34 in the morning was that wooden board was staring back at me from across the room: make everyone in this room financially free.
Mhm.
I think it hit me at 4:30 in the morning. I jumped out of bed. I quickly got dressed. I was at my office in Midtown Manhattan before the sun rose, and I sent an email to my investors telling them I'm giving them their money back. I'm shutting down my fund. I figured out my true purpose in life.
Wow. Wow. What an amazing story. Thank you. And, what lessons from managing a $700 million portfolio at Citi still influence your approach to personal finance today?
There's a lot of important lessons. First is that emotions can really impact you in all aspects of life. And I don't recommend pushing them down, but recognizing them, acknowledging them, but also knowing that some of them I'm not serving you. The lower vibration frequency emotions like fear, worry, anger, sadness, depression, those low vibration emotions are not serving you. So if you're feeling those, think about how you can increase that vibration or frequency.
Right.
What can you do to get to overwhelm or doubt, which is much higher than anger and fear and worry or sadness? And so when I was managing those hundreds of millions of dollars, and this was 2008, by the way, when I was managing the most money, the volatility in the portfolio and the red, which showed that my stocks that I was expecting to go up were going down, showed me that there was a lot of fear around the world. It was reflected in the stock tickers on the 4 screens in front of me. And so I also realized that people can get impacted by other people's emotions.
Well said.
I was overwhelmed by the fear and worry that was going on around the world, reflected in those hundreds of tickers. And to step back and say, wait a second, this is not a way to run a portfolio. This is not a way to run your life. And what can I do to increase my vibration to the highest levels, which are gratitude, appreciation, joy, passion, happiness? And I created a rule book, The 9 Money Rules Millionaires Use, my second book, to have people recognize that what's most important in life, which is rule number 3 in the 9 money rules: can happiness buy you money?
Right.
Not can money buy you happiness, but can happiness buy you money? Because I realized when I was ecstatic, when I was really having fun, it didn't matter what these fluctuations in these individual stock prices were. So that's a really important lesson.
Correct.
The other really important lesson is belief. What is your conviction in your investments? Just like what is your conviction in your business, if you're a business owner? Because things don't go like this. It's a bit of, so most people say there's ebb and flow. I say there's flow and more flow. So when there's just flow, how are you dealing with that? And that can create some doubts. And so what your level of belief is in your dream, in your business, in your investments is critical. And so I have my clients write down the level of belief from 1 to 10. 10 is absolute faith. I know I'm going to make money in this investment. I know my business is going to be successful. And 1 is massive doubt. There's no way this is going to work.
Right.
And rank yourself before you make the investment, before you create the business, and then check yourself every 3 to 6 months. Because if you're not a 7, 8, 9, or 10, you're going to be selling when you should be buying and buying when you should be selling.
Fascinating. Fascinating. You also talk about limiting beliefs around money. What are the most common ones you encounter in your coaching practice?
There's a ton. And most people, I will say, don't even realize they have limiting beliefs. I call them invisible limiting beliefs. The most common ones I found are you have to work really, really hard to be rich and successful. This is what my parents taught me. And I'm pretty sure your parents taught you this too. My grandparents taught my parents, and my great-grandparents taught my grandparents. Grind it out really, really hard. Create matter to move matter. And I found in my life that when I was taking inspired action from a high vibration frequency rather than this kind of white knuckling at resistance, that there was flow and more abundance and prosperity came to me. So this energy is not creating prosperity. This energy is. And so recognize when you're making it hard. It's hard work. No, it should be fun. It should be enjoyable. So that's one limiting belief. I have to work really, really hard to be rich and successful. Another very common one is, if I'm a good person, then it's hard to be rich. Most great, really generous, good souls are not rich. And that's a massive limiting belief, because if you really want to be prosperous, this is what's going on all day, every day. And I will tell you from my personal experience, I've met one billionaire in my lifetime and a few people who are worth hundreds of millions of US dollars. And they are the most generous, kind, caring people I've met in my life.
Correct. Absolutely. Well said. Just before we started recording our conversation, you were talking about your interest in the spiritual aspects of life. And therefore, my question is, how does your approach blend financial literacy with emotional and spiritual well-being?
It's everything. Mindset is the foundational principle for all my teachings. And I truly believe that if you don't have a strong foundation, a strong mindset, emotional maturity, spiritual maturity, then it's really tough to be successful in life, in business, in investing. So the first steps I teach are all around mindset and emotional maturity. And so figuring out where you are on the scale first, and creating a strong foundational principles. And a lot of people do come to me and say, Joel, in the 9 Money Rules Millionaires use, you have a 5-step stock screen. I want to learn that. Or teach me the 7-step real estate screen. And I say, I will. But first, we're going to have you do this financial freedom survey to see what your beliefs are around money, to see what you've learned about growing up, that we may need to shift a bit, because some of these beliefs are not serving you. Some of these emotions are not serving you. And let's shift them first. And then once we have a strong foundation, then we can build on that.
Fascinating. Fascinating. A few minutes back, you were also talking about one of the limiting beliefs that, if you're a good person, you can't be rich. I want to ask you, is there a money mindset that millionaires have which other people tend to overlook?
Yes, I think one is trusting your intuition. And I'm pretty sure no financial advisor or financial planner will tell you to trust your intuition. But as a former hedge fund manager, I will tell you that if I didn't trust my intuition when I was a professional investor, I either lost money or made less money.
Right.
So your intuition is your higher self giving you advice all day, every day. And you have to tap into that. Listen, quiet your mind, visualize, meditate. And when you quiet your mind, you get access to infinite intelligence. And most business people won't talk about this outwardly. But they generally have some type of practice where they're tapping into infinite intelligence. If you've ever read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill,
No.
And anybody who's watching and listening, I highly recommend reading that book. I've read it 31 times. I read it twice a year, every year since 2008. And he talks about infinite intelligence. He talks about tapping in, how Thomas Edison, the creator of the light bulb,
Yeah.
electricity, he would sit quieting his mind when he was trying to get the invention for the light bulb. Apparently he failed 10,000 times. But he didn't give up because he knew he could tap into infinite intelligence, and he kept on working on it, believing it. And that was tapping into intuition. So that's one. The other aspect I think that millionaires maybe don't talk about a lot is gratitude. Being grateful for what you have, even wherever you are, like before you get there.
Yeah.
Be grateful for what you have right now, and you can still have goals to achieve more and more. But on a daily basis, being grateful, being appreciative. I'm jogging in the morning pretty much every day, just saying thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for this lovely day. Thank you for the sun shining. Thank you for my health. Thank you for my living area. Thank you for breathing. What the basics that you can be grateful for, because anyone who's watching or listening this, they're better off than 99% of the world.
Correct.
So gratitude is another really powerful.
Very interesting. My next question for you, Joel, is in your view, what is more important, earning more or managing better what you already have?
Great question. Well, I think if you manage what you already have well, then you can also generate a lot more in prosperity. And I will say, the purpose of any person on this earth is to serve others, being of service to others, however, in whatever form that is. And so when you're on purpose and doing what you love and inspires you, that'll create more prosperity and abundance in your life and the life of others.
Okay. My next question is that when you look at your book, The 9 Money Rules Millionaires Use, what is one unconventional money rule from your book that really surprises people?
I think the most controversial rule of the 9 is don't diversify.
Okay.
Don't diversify. I think every professional and personal investor has been taught to diversify. Put your eggs in many, many baskets. And I will say that is a fear-based philosophy. It assumes that something's going to go wrong.
Yeah.
It assumes that something is going to go down. And so you have to diversify. There's going to be a rainy day, so prepare for that. And I would say, why not act in faith, act in high belief, and have just a few eggs and watch those eggs very carefully. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's chairman of Berkshire Hathaway up until a couple of years ago, he worked with Warren Buffett for over 50 years, said, if you know nothing, diversify. If you know nothing, diversify.
Right.
So if you know nothing about stocks, if you know nothing about real estate, just put it in a lot of baskets. Warren Buffett himself has said that if he could, he would put more than 50% of his net worth in one business.
Wow.
And I will tell you personally, from my experience managing from 300 to $700 million at Citigroup, that my top 5 to 7 ideas each year made me more than 100% of my return for the year, and the other 90 lost me money. I had to be diversified.
Yeah.
And yet I would have been better returns each year with 5 to 7 securities.
Great response. Joel, I have time for 2 more questions. One of the important aspects of investing is your risk appetite. And this changes as we go through different stages of life. So I'm 68 years old, and today I want to be as liquid as I possibly can. My question is, how do you customize your financial coaching for different people? And what financial concepts are important for children and teenagers to understand?
Yeah, great question. So I have my clients fill out a financial freedom survey, and we go over that survey, and the first step is figuring out what they were taught about money growing up, because that generally sticks with you throughout life.
Yeah.
So what are the limiting beliefs? What is their risk appetite when it comes to different types of asset classes, stocks or real estate or crypto, whatever? Are they willing to invest in these different asset classes, and why? And so I get a general sense from having them fill out that survey. I also have created a money personality type survey. So in Infinite Love and Money, that's in that book. And I also, if anybody wants to, I send me, if you can email me here at joel@SaLaurMor.com, and I'll send you the money personality type survey for free. You fill it out, I'll let you know which personality type you are. And so my clients fill it out, and so I get a pretty good idea of where they are on the spectrum, and that instills both in them and me an idea of where they need to go. And I will say that unfortunately most people are taking less risk than they could be because of fear. And I'll just give you an example. As you touched, you could be living another 30 years.
Absolutely.
And so why not plan for that, and therefore take a bit more risk, because you have 30 more years of life.
Correct.
Right. So, and then to your question about children, the law of compound interest is a very powerful thing.
Yeah.
And so, and as a younger person, you can quote unquote take more risks because you're okay with more volatility, because you have a lot more time. So if you're 15 years old and planning to retire at 65, you have 50 years. And so if you were to put, I think the way it works is, if you were to put $1,000 US into an investment that earns 10% for just 15 years, from age 15 to 30, you'd have the same amount, and stop. You'd have the same amount as if somebody who started at 30 and did it for 30 years at 65.
Yeah.
So that's the power of compound interest. You only have to save for 15 years if you start at 15 years of age, versus 30 years if you start at 30.
Absolutely. What a great response. Thank you. And my last question, I can't possibly not ask you about your nonprofit, SaLaurMor Charitable Giving. Tell me about this foundation and what motivated you to focus on youth financial literacy.
Well, the main reason is, when speaking with a lot of adults, is they were taught, concepts that may not be the truth, or limiting beliefs at least.
Yeah.
And so if we can start earlier, because at least here in the US, and I don't know how it is around the world, but here in the US, financial literacy is not taught in the schools. And so learning about being a business person, being an entrepreneur, how to invest, how to have your money work hard for you rather than you work hard for your money. All these concepts are not really taught in schools. So I thought it would be great to teach teenagers and even younger the core concepts about money and prosperity and abundance, so that they can thrive as we were meant to do and not just survive. And so that is the main reason why I created the charity. I've taught kids in Connecticut, both at the Boys and Girls Club, the Girl Scout conferences, and I want to expand it. I'm actually doing a joint venture right now with a woman in Mexico to teach the kids in Mexico the core concepts of financial literacy.
Oh, wonderful. And on that note, Joel, I just want to say this has been such a fascinating conversation. First, about your own journey. I think, you've so easily communicated such a large amount of good that you're doing in this world. Thank you for talking to me about money, the importance of managing money. We spoke about limiting beliefs. We spoke about money mindset. You took us through some interesting pointers about the 9 money rules. You also spoke to us about your charitable giving foundation. And thank you for all that you're doing with this foundation to educate so many young people on the importance of financial knowledge. Thank you again for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you, Ashutosh.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.